Hello and welcome everyone to today's webcast. My name is Morten. I'm the presenter and I'm an R&D engineer here at AnyBody Technology. Together here with me, I have Christopher, who will be moral support, but who will also help answer some of the questions that you may have during this presentation. So if you have any questions, open the control panel on the right side of the screen and type the questions. We will try to answer them right away. If there's any questions at the end, we might also do a quick Q&A session there. But if for some reason your question is not answered, we'll try to get back to you on email, I promise. Today's agenda is talking about what is new in the AnyBody modeling system and the accompanying model repository. So that was today's agenda. So I have to get this to change. Yeah. So usually when we do these presentations, I give an introduction to what the AnyBody modeling system is, but I think probably most of you attending this webcast will already know that. So I think I will skip that part and just say that, and instead just tell you a little bit about our company, because we rarely do that. So AnyBody Technology is a really small company in northern part of Denmark. We are around 10, 15 people. But we have a very long expertise in biomechanical simulations. The company just had its 20-year anniversary, and we are originally a spin-out from biomechanical research at Aalborg University. That research group is actually still going really fine, and we are having a strong collaboration with them. We continue to do so. Our business areas is, of course, that we sell and maintain the AnyBody modeling system and the accompanying models that you're going to hear about today. But we also do a lot of training and support and participate in different kind of projects, and we also sell consultancy services. So if you have any biomechanical problems that you think we could help you with, please get in touch with us. We are experts in our own software. We can often do things very quickly compared to what new users are able to do. Yeah, today we're going to talk about what's new with the newest AnyBody release. And as you may know, AnyBody is really two things. It's the AnyBody modeling system, as you see here on the left side of the screen, which is a modeling system where you can develop any kind of models in. But AnyBody is also the AnyBody modeling model repository, which is a whole set of body models that we curate and maintain. The models were made by research groups around the world, and the model repository also contains a whole suite of example models that are good starting points if you are trying to do your own body models or do your own modeling. Besides this version 7.4, which was released last month, we also have a 7.4.1 version, which just came out today or yesterday. And it has like a lot of smaller updates to the 7.4, some stability issues which were fixed, and also a few features which wasn't quite ready for version 7.4. So if you already got version 7.4, I encourage you to really update to this version. And if you haven't, then this is the version that you have to go and get. If you want to find it on our homepage, you go to anybodytech.com, you click on the resource tab in the menu bar, and then customer downloads. And then you should be able to download the modeling system. You might need to log in or create a user on our homepage. Even if you had one before, our new homepage might require that you create one again. The first thing I'm going to talk about today are all the new features in the model repository. So the model repository, or the AnyBody managed model repository, that's short for AMM, we shortened it AMMR, it has a version 2.4. And that comes bundled with AnyBody. So if you need to find the model repository and you've installed AnyBody, you can click the AnyBody assistant either in the help menu or the icon on the menu bar. And inside there, you can click the demo tab, and then there is a link so you can extract the model repository. But you can also find the model repository archived on Zenodo. Zenodo is a site for hosting data and models online. It's hosted. It's run by researchers at CERN in Switzerland. We upload all our model repositories to Zenodo, and Zenodo, they issue a DOI. So if you ever do research with it and want to point to exactly which version of a model repository you are using, this is a really convenient way of using it or getting the model repository. This kind of ensures that the users that you're building models for are always able to get that exact version that you specify. Finally, you can get the model repository from our development repository on GitHub. This is where all the model development happens. And it's also where you would find the bleeding edge models. Usually we take whatever is here when we release AnyBody, and then that version is packaged together with the AnyBody model repository, with the AnyBody modeling system. But you can get access to the bleeding edge. It's a semi-private repository on GitHub for the reason that a lot of our collaborators at academic institutions, they often want to publish their models or publish their results before they make their models available to others. So, so you can apply for access here, or write to us either directly or write on the forum. But we usually give access to everyone who wants to contribute or get access to the newest version. Yeah, the model repository has updated quite a lot since version 2.3. There's been more than 80 sort of independent, what we call pull requests, but sort of compact changes to it. Many contributions are also from our external users and collaborators. There is a lot of new model examples and improved body models, and as well as fixes and tweaks and to different kind of performance and robustness. But I'll talk about that now. The main highlights in this version are many new examples, and then my favorite, an automatic tool for creating videos from your models. We'll get back to that. And then, of course, a lot of smaller fixes and changes. One of the newest examples in the body model or in the repository is this box lift MoCap model example. We've observed that many of our users, they have a hard time making the MoCap models interact with the environment. So we created a good example of how to do this. And this model here allows you to connect boxes to a MoCap model and then do the simulation. There's also two other similar kind of models which show off different concepts for exoskeletons. One is a explorative model. You can also find more about that model in a webcast which was presented by Professor John Rasmussen, I think half a year ago, but you can find it on our website. It shows different concepts of how to explore, how to add exoskeletons to your model. And there is also a more concrete example of adding a passive trunk exoskeleton to one of these box lifting models. All of these models here were added and created by one of our newest colleagues here at AnyBody, Dr. Divash Chanda, who is really an expert in exoskeleton and biomechanical simulations. And he also created one of these examples here, which is a small example that show how you can optimize an inertial MoCap model. One of the problems we have with, you can have with inertial MoCap models, that is models where you've put an inertial MoCap suit on, is that those models are so not located in space. So if your model needs to interact with the environment, you might have some sort of offset between your data from your MoCap suit and then maybe some fixed positions in your lab coordinates. But this tool here allows you to say that the model should, for example, touch or step on certain positions at certain times, and then it sets up a sort of optimization problem where the model is moved and rotate it so that it touches the right places at the right time. Dr. Divashi created this small class template tool. A class template is a way to encapsulate any script code, but he created this small tool that makes it easy to set up this kind of optimization problem. Other new examples is that we have a small simplified, a simple knee force estimation model. A lot of people have asked us, how do you get the medial and lateral knee forces if you only have a simple revolute knee joint? And you, of course, can't, but you can get an estimation of what they would be. And this is what this model shows. And it also shows you how you can add small animations of those kind of forces. And then finally, there is a new tool for modeling femoral torsion. It's a tool created by one of our super users, Dr. Enrico De Pieri. He was previously at the University of Basel at Basel Children's Hospital, but he created this tool where you basically morph the one part of the femur to get some femoral torsion, and it can be used in any of the models, so you can easily insert it into your own application or your own model. And if you use this tool, please cite his work. He is doing some awesome stuff. Yeah, if you want to see all of these application examples, you can find the documentation for the model repository, and then select the application examples entry here in the table of content. And then there are a full list of all the examples, model examples in the model repository, including these new ones, which I just showed. And this brings us to the body model changes in the model repository. There are a few, but I'll just highlight these. There's been some updates to the oblique muscles for the model so that they work in even extreme ranges of motion where they would previously lose some of their strength. There's also updates to the latissimus dorsi muscle, which has more branches. So now it inserts on every vertebra all the way up, and this is done in preparation for something we are working on, a full thoracic model. We also have a more realistic neutral scapular posture. And that work, I would like to thank Joanna Mense from University of Bern, who is really one of our super users who've been working a lot with the shoulder model. Finally, if you ever worked with the arm model and you go into the joint folder or look at the joint implementation, you can now see that there is a new and simplified implementation of the elbow and forearm joints, as well as the shoulder joints. Previously, those joints were implemented using measures and constraints directly, which could be a little bit confusing. And the reason for that was that this model was made a long time ago when AnyBody was less mature and didn't have the same features as it has now. So this part of the model here has been restructured. Some of the joints have been renamed. So it's now much easier to get an overview of the different joints in the forearm and shoulder. But I gotta say that this is only like a restructure. It doesn't change any of the underlying kinematics. They still stay exactly the same. Yeah, and then there is a lot of other smaller fixes and changes. And I encourage you to look them up later. I will show you where you can find information on that. But this brings us to the next topic, which is actually my favorite new addition to the model repository. There is a new video tool. It's included in, I think, a lot of the model examples, at least the model examples that have some sort of motion and where there is time involved. They have this new video tool enabled. And you can find it if you look for the operations in those model examples. If they have an operation called create video, then you will be able to run that operation to create an MP4 video simply with a click of a button. And the beauty of this is that it's really configurable. So you can set video resolution, speed, you can choose what codec you want to use, you can point the camera at certain parts of the model, you can add like a moving camera, you can do all kind of things, and you can code everything in the script so that every time you run your create video operation, you get the same video out. And that's really the beauty of it. And you can take this tool, if you find one of those examples that has this create video operation, then you can take that and copy into your own model as well. There are a lot of things that you can configure, and I encourage you to take a look at it. Yeah, copy it into your own models. This has literally saved me days of work when I need to create videos, for example, presentations. And yeah, what else has changed? As I said, there were a lot of improvements and also some bug fixes. If you want to know exactly what has changed, you can go to the documentation for the model repository, and there is a link called What's New in MMR 241. And if you click that, you get the whole changelog. And you can look through that to see if any of the changes affect your work. Be sure to check both version 241 and 240, as they are sort of almost like one version. This brings us to the next part, which is the changes to the modeling system itself. The theme of the new features in 7.4 are, I would say, all about making it easier for users to build models and making it easier to use the scripts. So you might say that it's targeted a bit more advanced users. We have a new AnyScript syntax, which looks maybe a bit odd, but I'll tell you about that in a minute. We also have some improvements to the preprocessor logic in AnyBody, more powerful class templates, and then of course some general improvements and also bug fixes. The new AnyScript syntax, we call it the optional assignment operator, and it's an assignment like the normal equal sign that you know, and it's inspired by syntax in JavaScript and C#. If you just use it as I'm showing here, it does exactly the same thing as if you just had a single equal sign. It assigns a value to a variable, but it does it in such a way that you can later overwrite that value with another overwrite that variable with another value. So you can think of this as providing a default value for your variable. And this also works not only for variables that you declare yourself, it also works for members of classes. So in this case here we have any ref node, like a local coordinate system. And here we can also assign values which are default values that it will be used unless you somewhere else in your code assign a new value to it or override it. So you might ask, why is this useful? And to really understand that, you have to understand how most of these models are used and structured. So most people, what they would do, or the recommended way of working with AnyBody, is that you put the model repository and all the body models somewhere on your computer. That's what I've indicated here. Maybe somewhere in documents you have the version of the model repository. If you then work with some applications or some examples, you would copy those examples out of the model repository and store them somewhere else, so that they don't lie together with the actual body models. And this is what I've tried to illustrate here on the figure. So I have I have a folder somewhere on my computer with my model. It could be some example model, and that uses the body model in the model repository. And the way these two are linked are through these small files called libdef, or library definition files. They basically just tell anybody which model repository to use. So in this case, I could have many models that all shared the same body model. And then you can maybe understand why it's not nice to just change variables all the way around or in every place, because if I were to change something in the body model part when working with my model down here, all the other models would also change. So when we and this is where this optional assignment operator is really useful, because this means that we don't need to change the body model components directly if they are defined this way. We can basically change it locally in our model without affecting the other models. And it makes it much easier when you at some point need to update the model repository, because at that point you can just replace the MMR folder up here and your model will continue to work. The next improvement are those things I talked about with improvements to the preprocessor. But you might not know what the preprocessor is. It's that code in your scripts that runs before anybody actually reads your model. And it's very similar to the C and C++ preprocessor, if you are familiar with programming language. It's basically all these lines or parts of the code that starts with a small hashtag, like if, else, include, define, all these kind of things. They are structures in your script that allow you to select different parts of the model, for example, using some sort of small configuration variables here, like define side to right, and then you would have like a if-else clause down here that included some part of the code depending on what the variable of this side variable would be. And previously you were only allowed to use numbers and strings in these comparisons, but that has changed here in version 7.4 of AnyBody. So now arbitrary identifiers are used, and that might seem like a very small thing, but for us who built these kind of models, it actually means a lot, and it makes it a lot easier to structure the models and to get the logic right. We also have a more flexible class template, or class templates here in the newest version of AnyBody. Class templates are AnyBody's way of doing code encapsulation. It allows us to reuse code. So let me just give a short example. Here is a definition of a class template in AnyBody. We have created a class template and it's called create custom global ref. It's a small piece of code that includes a fixed reference frame. That can then be used somewhere in the script. We would say create custom global ref and give it a name. And every time you write that, all of the things that you see here on the left are inserted in that place. So you can see how it allows us to encapsulate code and to reuse code. We could have easily have created multiple of these objects. If we then look at how that would look after the model has loaded, here in the model tree, we can see that there is a folder called global1, and inside there is this global reference frame, which the class template defined. But you might also see that global1 here is an any folder. And that was a restriction that used to be in AnyBody, and it made the usability of these class templates, it limited that somewhat. But now class templates can be any class, and that is specified with this argument here, where you say class equal and then the class that you want your class template to become. We could imagine the example I showed you before with a global reference frame. Here we have a class template that is in itself an any fixed reference frame. So the complexity goes down a bit, and if we were to use it as we did before, you can see what the result would be. Like global1 still is a folder with any fixed reference frame inside, but global2, which we defined down here, is itself an any fixed reference frame. So this means that class templates are now much more useful and for code reuse. There are also other smaller improvements to the class templates. For example, you can use this implicit name argument inside class templates, which will always hold the object when the user created it. And this means that you can add multiple class templates and still make them create different objects or different named objects, so they don't conflict with each other. It's a small improvement, but it's also very important to model builders. And finally, we have some updates to the editor interface. Custom class templates or class templates are now syntax highlighted. And this is what I mean with that. Here is a snippet from one of the MoCap models. In the MoCap models, we use a lot of class templates. For example, to create the marker protocol. every time you insert a marker, you insert a lot of AnyScript code, and that's wrapped with a small class template to reuse the code. And if we look at a MoCap protocol now, we can see that all the create marker driver classes here, they are syntax highlighted, so they turn out purple. So it's really easy to see. So that's kind of like a dynamic syntax highlighting, because anybody doesn't know what the class templates are before it loads. So as soon as you load the model, it would detect what class templates are available, and it would highlight those names in your scripts. Another thing is that you can right-click the class templates, these highlighted purple ones, and then you can select the option Go to Class Template, and that would immediately jump to the place where the class templates are defined. So hopefully that should also make it a little bit easier to work with class templates. If you want to see what else has changed in the AnyBody modeling system, you can select the help menu and then release notes, and that would open up the release notes for AnyBody. And I encourage you to do so you can see all the things that have changed. I haven't mentioned everything here. Yeah, this brings me to the end. I also encourage you to go to our homepage, anybodytech.com, where you can find information about upcoming events, more upcoming webcasts. We also have a whole library of webcasts, so you can see previous webcasts. There is a publication list on our homepage, which I find really useful. It shows all the publications that have used AnyBody. So if you're doing this kind of research, it's a good way to find similar studies. You can also go to anyscript.org, which is more like a community site for people working with AnyScript and AnyBody. There's a wiki site. There's a link to the forum, for example, where you can ask questions or get in touch with other users. Yeah. And that brings us to the end. Thank you very much for listening.